For more on this, we're joined now by Katherine Hayes, the Chief Executive of the Youth Advocacy Centre. Katherine Hayes, welcome to ABC News. Thank you so much for speaking with us. Just in response to those changes that have been announced today by the Queensland Premier Anastasia Palaszczuk, what do you have to say in terms of how that might be impacting youth with the way that those rules will be applied?
I think that the first thing to say is to acknowledge the seriousness of the crime that has occurred in North Lakes. It's abhorrent and awful and a tragedy for the Lovell family. It's just horrific. The state government's new laws mean that the focus is now on after the crime has occurred rather than preventing crime. So our focus needs to be on preventing crime. So what that means is we need to look at how to address these high-risk offenders, these re-offenders that the Commissioner was talking about, how to prevent these re-offenders from continuing to commit crimes. And that means to put them on a better path before they start on a serious path of crime. So what that means we've got to do is address that re-offending before it starts. So looking at the disadvantage that they've experienced, looking at the poverty, addressing all of the issues that these young people experience. So that's a very difficult task that takes a long period of time, but it looks at preventing rather than addressing the criminals.
So in your view, we need to have a more holistic look at the way the criminal justice system acts, that clearly in this instance and in many instances we're wanting to ensure that the community remains as safe as possible and all steps are taken there. But what you're saying is that there is more to what's happening, particularly when we are seeing communities that are experiencing, say, a rise in youth justice issues. I can look to, for instance, Alice Springs recently has been capturing a lot of media attention around rates of youth crime and the impact on the community. Do you feel that there are enough steps being taken to help address those underlying issues which appear to be influencing young people in not having the help that they need and making those decisions?
I think that there always is a case for more funding, and I think that a really good justification for increasing funding for the support services is that the cost of holding young people in detention far outweighs the cost of providing these services that address the issues. So what's needed for the serious reoffenders is youth workers or social workers who work with their family, work with the young people numerous times a week for a number of years. And that's very intensive and takes a long period of time for it to work. But what it does is re-establish networks, connections, help them re-engage with school, perhaps get a job and find accommodation. They're the steps that need to be taken. And they're not overnight solutions. They take a long period of time, but they're more cost effective and more effective overall in the end.
Do we also find ourselves in a situation potentially where making the sorts of changes that have been announced today in Queensland limits the way that the court system can judge individual cases as well? Is that potentially an issue?
Very much an issue. Removing the judge's discretion is something that goes against our system of law. So it's very important that the laws don't interfere with that judge's discretion if it's the kind of law that requires somebody to exercise how to apply the law depending on the facts and circumstances of the case. And that's the case for bail because it depends on the circumstances of the conduct, how long the person has been held on remand, whether or not there's any mitigating circumstances. So that's very much a situation where a judge or a magistrate needs discretion.
Could we look at